and funny car? Can road racers learn to go straight? Who got lucky in Las Vegas? And what school offers racing as one of the R's? From the Cheap Auto Parts Nationals in Ennis, Texas, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. Since 1986, when the Texas Motorplex first opened its gates in Ennis, Texas, outside of Dallas, it's been the scene of some of the greatest moments in drag racing history. That first year, Kenny Bernstein ran a then record ET of 5.42 seconds. And Bob Glidden scored the 50th Pro Stock win of his career. Over the years, more performance records were set at the Motorplex, and at last year's event, Gary Ormsby set both halves of the Top Fuel national record, and Ed McCullough set what remains as the quickest funny car run to date, a 5.13 elapsed time. Some of those records have fallen since we were last here, and others are sure to tumble before this weekend is over, because the Plex is the home of Texas-sized performance. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and welcome to this edition of NHRA Today. In the next half hour, we'll show you some of the reasons why the 5th annual Cheap Auto Parts Nationals is one of the most intense races on the Winston calendar. But first, let's take a moment and find out what's hot. You know, the number 300 is important in several different sports. A Major League Baseball pitcher gets 300 wins, instant Hall of Fame time. A Major League batter hit 300 every season and you'll stay in the $1 Million a Year club. Now, NHRA, when they mandated the lower 320 gear for this season, part of the reason was to put off 300-mile-an-hour racing as long as possible, preferably forever. Well, 8 months into the new rule, Gary Ormsby, 296 miles an hour at Topeka. His crew chief, Lee Beard, would love to make Ormsby the first member of a 300-mile-an-hour club, maybe the last, too.
I'll tell you, I'm obsessed with it. I'd love to be able to break that as much as I'd like to be able to win another championship.
And you're on the right racetrack to do it?
If the conditions are right, and it has to be very cool, overcast, this car right here is far enough along with its engine development program to make enough horsepower to accelerate this vehicle to over 300 miles an hour.
Well, it's one thing to wrench the car to 300. It's another thing to go along for the ride.
Well, to be the first one to ever do it, it means a lot, and I definitely want to go 300 miles an hour. No question about it. We're knocking on the door now, and we hope it'll happen here this weekend.
Make you immortal.
It would, I guess, but I'd like to just do it for myself and the team as hard as they work.
And that's what's hot. The 1990 Winston Funny Car Championship could be clinched here in Texas this weekend. Now, coming into the Cheap Auto Parts Nationals, the points shape up like this. John Force is ahead of Ed McCullough by 1,042 points. A race win is worth 1,000 points, and there's bonuses for low ET and records, etc. Ed, what would you have to accomplish here that would make you feel good going into Pomona in 2 weeks?
Well, obviously, Steve, we need to win here. We need to win, and Force needs to go out early. You know, we've got a lot of confidence here. We usually run well here. So we're looking forward to this first round and see how it's going to go.
How does John Force feel about all of this?
He's a good racer and more power to him. I want to wish him luck, and but we're not going to make it easy. We're going to hang on to this lead if we can.
This season, John Force and Ed McCullough have raced each other 6 times, and the score is 3 apiece, and all were exciting confrontations. But none of them quite as strange as when the two went at it a year ago here.
Well, it was one of those on-again, off-again races. We went out, smoked the tires, hydraulic the thing, kicked the rods out, made a nice little move over, touched the wall.
I never hit the wall. McCullough hit the wall. In fact, the guy that I was heading at the wall ducked, went under the wall. I missed it, and it was quite a deal, quite an experience.
When I got to the other end, they says, you won. I said, you know, okay, we'll take that.
And then all of a sudden, they made the call, and yeah, I had a real fit. A lot of things I never believed I could say, but I said.
They came down and asked me, they said, well, did you hit the wall? And I said, yeah, I did. So at that point, they said, well, okay, Force says he didn't, so at least I was honest about it.
I guess the most fun was going out on the racetrack and seeing how the people relate to who really won the race. NHRA is always fair, and Steve Gibbs went out, they made a call, and they put me back in the race, and it was just a good day for us.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Firestone, makers of Firehawk Performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip. Tires that meet the test. And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
In 1986, when Billy Meyer first conceived the Texas Motorplex, he wanted nothing but the best, including the best racing surface. So he opted for concrete. Well, the racers had experienced old concrete runways, and they were very rough because of the tar expansion joints. There are none in this surface because, first of all, they paid attention to all of the drainage and soil preparation. They poured the track in sections over 1,500-foot-long steel cables. After each section, more and more pressure was winched into those cables till it was 30,000 psi. There's not a ripple in this racetrack, and that is one of the few downsides to it. It is so smooth and the cars go so straight that the groove is very, very narrow. Even though a track like this aids a vehicle's performance, victory is still literally in the hands of the driver. And among the busiest in racing are the pro stockers, as Don Garlitz demonstrates in this week's Tech Tip.
As top fuelers and funny cars became more and more automated, making the driving chore for the driver simpler, pro stock drivers such as Larry Morgan find that their job becomes more and more complicated. Let me just take you through a little sequence of what one of these drivers has to do in just a little over 7 seconds. As they stage the car, they must turn on the computer. Then the driver must look forward to the dash and check the instruments to see what the pressures are like, both in the oil and the line lock, also glancing at the water temperature. He must then make sure the car is in forward drive, which is right there. Then he's got his hand on the shift lever. He's ready to go. He lets out the clutch, releases the line lock all at the same time, and he's underway. Now he's looking over the windshield. A red light comes on, which indicates that it's time for the first shift. He shifts the car. He's still watching the red light. Another shift. He's still watching the red light. Of course, they're still driving the car during all of this time. Another shift. They're in high gear, and now they're headed for the lights. As we go through the lights, it's hands up on the roof, and the parachute is now released. We're now stopping. He goes forward to his console over the windshield. We have 6 switches that have to be turned off or on. The fuel pressure, the engine, the fan, the water pump, and a couple of other auxiliary switches. All of this in just a little over 7 seconds. Sounds like quite a job to me.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
The sport gets a genuine shot of glamour in one of America's leading women's magazines. Just check out the October issue of Cosmopolitan magazine, page 82 to be precise. And Lori Johns, this is spectacular.
Thank you. I was really excited when I saw the outcome. I was a little skeptical at first, but I think it came out well.
Now, we know about the fiery shot earlier this year in Denver. Tell me about the fashion shoot. Was it fun?
Well, I had to go to Chicago and do it, and there were makeup people and hair people from New York and stylists and people to tell me which way to turn my head and how to sit. So it was a long day, but I guess it turned out for the best.
Would you trade the cockpit for a modeling assignment?
Never, never, ever. I was very happy at about 5 o'clock that afternoon when we were done that I do what I do, and I'm not a model.
We told you earlier that the top 2 drivers in funny car competition are 1,042 points apart. Well, in pro stock, the top 5 drivers are 506 points apart, top to bottom. And Bob Glidden, you are bottom.
I'm at the bottom, Steve, but there are still 2 races to go. And even though we're an odds-off favorite not to win, anything can happen. Over the years, we've had miracles happen at the last couple of races. So, you know, we're not down and out yet.
Sounds to me like Bob agrees with me. It's an even money bet who wins pro stock. And speaking of odds, one of our own knows a bit about that. Bob Fry was in Las Vegas last weekend covering a Winston Drag Racing Series event.
When you think about Las Vegas, you think about gambling. But not when the Winston Drag Racing Series event comes to Las Vegas International Speedway. Then you think about drag racing. In fact, we've put gambling completely out of our minds. Well, I'll give you 6 to 5 odds that we don't mention gambling once during the rest of this show. Now, in the alcohol classes, it really was a crapshoot, with 21 cars entered in each category. So the racers had to let the chips fall where they may. In the other sportsman classes, it was a huge bonanza for some, while others just 7'd out, and with it went their chances for fame and fortune. Yeah, it's only the on-track action that's been on my mind here in Vegas. Has anybody seen my dice? One driver came to Las Vegas International Raceway to try his luck at taking over the lead in the Winston Stock Eliminator Championship. Don Keene.
I need to win this round. I have a bye in the second if I can win the first round here, and that'll put me ahead of Mike Walter.
Don seems to have a keen knack for success. Earlier this year, he took his 428 cubic inch Cobra Jet Mustang to a victory at the Arizona Nationals and set a class record in the process. The Californian, who began racing at age 18, 1990, was a dream season.
Well, I never thought we'd be where we're at right now. No way.
But just as Don stood on the verge of success, a starter motor failed, and Don, his father, and friends began a desperate thrash to repair the car. For about 15 minutes, they tore into the crowded engine compartment to replace the part, all the while fearing that a Winston title could be slipping away. But finally, Don pulled the Mustang into the staging lane with moments to spare. All he needed was a first-round victory, and the points lead would be his. But then fate dealt him a losing hand.
I can't believe it. The motor went away. It's run perfect. Cars never let me down. And I had the guy covered. It had a better life. The motor broke. All my car had to do was run. I was dialed soft. There was no reason I shouldn't beat him, except for my car broke. I can't believe it. It really, that's the way it should end. It should end at Phoenix because that's where it started. And we're going to win it.
Another driver with a bundle riding on his performance in Las Vegas was Rodney Flournoy. Usually seen driving his family's Nitro funny car at match races and selected national events, Rodney also pilots a top alcohol dragster that runs on a sponsorless shoestring budget.
This car here, the owner is Charles Marquez, and I've been driving this for about 3 years now. He's a good friend of my dad's, so finally a couple of years ago, he finally asked me if I wanted to drive his car, so I've been doing pretty good since then. If possible, if we can get a little bit more money in the program, that we can run a few more national events or so.
Sadly, Rodney's hopes for a Vegas win streak went bust in the first round when he was defeated by Steve Correa. But amidst these tales of bad luck and heartbreak, there are stories of good fortune. You're looking at one of the most famous names in drag racing, Harudka. Now you're looking at the name on the side of one of the most impressive funny cars at Las Vegas International Speedway. Let's meet the driver of this car, Pete Duhart.
Well, Joey Harudka was going to drive the car in the beginning, but he wasn't real comfortable in the funny car. He's going to build himself a dragster and try it that way. So in the meantime, Bob Newberry and Frank Hawley recommended that I get a chance to drive the car, and so far it's working out okay.
Duhart, who was driving on the East Coast earlier this year for Jerome Bradford, saw his deal with Harudka as a sort of homecoming.
Well, I'm from Huntington Beach, California. I went back east to drive Jerome's car, trying to get started out here and stuff. And I got the call from Joey, and so far it's working okay. We're into the semifinals, and we're just happy to be here.
As the sun dipped below the mountains and cast a golden glow across the Nevada desert, Duhart lined up against Mark Wozniak. But all Pete saw was red as he left the line too early. The Woz then defeated Lou Gasparelli in the final, a victory that carried with it an appropriate Vegas payoff.
In fact, one of the guys here, about 3 years ago, he made a little bet here. If you ever get in the finals at a national event or a divisional event, he'll shave his beard. Well, I've known him for 20 years, never shaved his beard. So tomorrow, or tonight, he shaves.
Here are other winners from Division 7. One thing that is not a gamble is a membership in the National Hot Rod Association. Among the sure things that you can count on with a membership are a variety of NHRA items and a subscription to National Dragster. And if you phone the number on your screen, you'll also get a bonus payoff, a copy of the Diamond P video Drag Racing 89. A sure thing if I ever saw one. And if you want one last chance to see the stars of Division 7 in action, check out Firebird International Raceway near Phoenix, Arizona, October 18th through the 20th.
With only 394 points separating Gary Ormsby and Joe Amato, you really need a pocket calculator to keep track of the action. 50 points for low ET, 32 points for qualifying number 1, 200. Well, you get the idea. You better have paid attention to the third R, arithmetic, in school. But the sport has also been found useful in teaching the middle R. Dave McClellan has that story.
When you're in the 7th grade, English, math, and science are pretty standard classes. But at the Hillsborough Middle School in Somerville, New Jersey, the team teachers of 7C have changed that a bit.
Most traditional writing classes wouldn't even be called writing class. They'd be called English class, and it would concentrate heavily on grammar. We teach writing as a class. We don't have a grammar class. We incorporate grammar into our writing.
What makes this writing class unique is the subject and the reason behind choosing it.
Most kids, if you ask them what their favorite subject is and list them a priority, would put writing or English at the bottom. Using something like drag racing, which is extraordinary and out of the norm, is something to help motivate them. And so I figured drag racing would be great because most kids aren't familiar with the sport of drag racing. It's colorful, it's noisy, it's got a lot of things that you have to be very observant for.
Obviously, the kids agree.
It gives them more challenge to learn about, like, you write things you don't know much about. Most people don't know about it. And it'll be exciting, like, to start something new and write about something you don't know about.
It's like something exciting to write about. It's not like your usual type of poem or something.
Just something that would stir up a kid's imagination.
Ryan introduced the unit last year using videotaped race coverage and a process approach to writing.
We start with what we call brainstorming. We have a ditto that we follow that allows the kids to categorize things. We go through a drafting session, a revision session, a proofreading session, and then that comes up with a final copy.
This year, after only 1 week of school, Ryan added another dimension to the students' learning experience.
Field trips for this age group, like, we could take them anywhere and they probably go crazy. But to tell them that we're going to a drag strip, to a drag race, their eyes just about shot out of their heads.
We're actually going to see something for English and racetrack.
I've never seen a car race, and this is going to be one exciting day for me.
We go and see all about it, and we get a better view and picture of what we have to write.
Brought to you by Firestone.
We're just going to be able to, like, write better.
I think we're lucky.
And Joe Amato would probably agree.
You guys get out of school and come here today?
Yep.
Such a deal. How come I never had that when I was in school?
I never thought I'd start to like auto racing.
It's very exciting. There's a lot going on. It's really neat to feel the ground shake underneath you when the cars go by, and the kids are loving it. It's been a great day so far.
In other reading classes or English classes, we never really went anywhere. They just showed us a movie or something. And this is like the real thing, and we're gonna have a good story.
Learning to write about racing, well, that's one form of education. Learning to drive a dragster, well, that's another. And even if the student has prior racing experience, it still takes very careful instruction. But as 2 IMSA Team Jaguar drivers found out, you can teach old dogs and cats new tricks if the teacher is the man that drives that car. Frank Hawley.
The twisting, winding path of a road race course. High speeds, quick turns, and heavy traffic. In the world of motorsports, road racing and drag racing are about as far apart as can be. But for 2 IMSA drivers, the lure of the quarter mile enticed them to give drag racing a try. So for one day last month, Bryce Cobb and Davey Jones traded in the wide-open curves for the straight and narrow.
Throttle stuck open.
Nothing I can say or try to describe or do or kick you or do whatever get you prepared for the launch of an alcohol dragster.
I've watched a lot of it on television. I've been to a few races, but never to feel the experience. You think, yeah, it's no problem. You know, you can run down there, blast out of there, and 5 seconds for a run. But the feeling is just incredible.
The 2 drivers got an accelerated course at the Frank Hawley Drag Racing School in Gainesville. In the classroom and on the track, the differences between the 2 types of racing became well defined.
Well, drag race cars specifically are designed to accelerate really fast because, in essence, that's all a drag race is. And the cars that we were racing here today, the gas dragsters, will go 0 to 60 in about a second, 0 to 100 in probably a little over 2 seconds. So that's not quite as fast as the top fuel dragsters, but it's plenty quick.
Gotta hope lunch stays down.
Beyond getting used to the cockpit of the car and mentally preparing yourself to be shot out of a cannon, the rest of it's not too difficult because we're already used to speed.
After much practice and preparation, Jones and Cobb took their places at the line, then took the ride of their lives. After the rush, both drivers agreed. Even though the run lasted only 8 seconds, it was definitely a thrill.
Hey, Davey! Yeah! How did you win? Was that fun or what?
In that Price Cobb is a good old Texas boy, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him follow through in his wish to do a bit more drag racing. Who knows? Might even see him here next year at the Chief Auto Parts Nationals. Well, that wraps up this edition of NHRA Today, but we will be back next week with more stories, including the results of the Chief Auto Parts Nationals and a profile of that magnificent man and his flying machines, Connie Coletta. For Dave McClellan, Don Garlitz, and Bob Fry, I'm Steve Evans. Thanks for joining us on NHRA Today.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars, and by Firestone, makers of Firehawk performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip, tires that meet the test. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special NHRA Today has been a presentation of Diamond P Sports.